Hi everyone, it's Rachel back with the Shades of Orange, and today I thought was the perfect time to come back and share with you what I have been reading this October. I have been in the spooky mood and I've definitely been reading a lot of Halloween themed horror, and I've been reading some really good books, some great recommendations in this video, so definitely hope you stick around and hopefully I can give you a few more books to add to your TBR or sneak into your reading plans over the next few weeks. All that being said, let's get started. First up, I read the iconic coming-of-age classic Something Wicked, This Way Comes by Bradbury. This is a story of the friendship between two young boys when a carnival rolls into town at the end of summer, coming towards the autumn Halloween season. And I went to this book not knowing too much about it. I've never seen the movie or any kind of adaptation, and so I went in pretty blind, just knowing it was a coming-of-age story, very iconic. I was really excited for it because I've read science fiction from Bradbury before, but I wanted to read more of his horror. And I did do this as a buddy read or a book club pick with my patron book club. I always have a link down below if you want to join us for a month. And I want to say that it was probably one of our best months. I think most people, if not everyone, enjoyed this one, and I thought it was very well done. I will admit that I'm learning that while I like coming-of-age stories, I prefer the ones that are all about the end of innocence, and this isn't necessarily one of those. Certainly it deals with childhood nostalgia, but while there are some creepy events that happen in the story, it's not the kind of story that leaves the characters devastated and rips away their childhood. So I enjoyed it, but it definitely wasn't quite the favorite I hoped it would be. There are coming-of-age stories that I prefer to this one, but I still thought that the writing was great. There are some really quotable moments, especially again about the end of childhood, about growing up, about the seasons changing, and I really enjoyed it. Definitely this was the right time of year to read it, and I would recommend it. If you haven't checked it out, I do think it's worth reading. So from there, I wanted to keep the Halloween vibes going, so I decided to read some Edgar Allan Poe. I started with the short story called The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe, and I've got to apologize, I have no idea how to say that name, but I love the short story, so I really want to talk about it. I think I read it in high school, and it was probably my favorite short story that I read at the time, and not surprisingly, because this book is really dark. Essentially, it is a revenge story about a man who is seeking revenge on this man, so he invites him to go to his family catacombs in the basement of his home during this carnival when all of his servants are gone from the house. He invites him in, and when they get into the basement, terrible things ensue. I love this story so much. Again, it is so dark and disturbing, and I really like Edgar Allan Poe. I really do need to read more of his work. I would love your recommendations on your favorite short stories by him, because he has so many short stories, I honestly don't know where to go from there. I did also continue on and reread the poem The Raven, which was amazing. I did it on audio, which I do think is a really good way to experience it. Again, I think it was a reread from high school, but I like the audiobook narration because I really thought that it gave a chance to just show the rhythm of the story, and again, it was creepy and dark. I am not a big poetry fan, but when it comes to horror poetry, Edgar Allan Poe knows how to do it right, and I really like his work. I don't know why I haven't read more by him, and I need to change that. Next up, I'm really excited to turn to a modern 2021 release, and I have to recommend Chasing the Boogeyman by Richard Chismar. This is a piece of mystery thriller that definitely will appeal to horror readers as well as true crime readers. The story is intended to be fictional, but it draws from real events and it's told as if it is a true story. So this is recounting the character of Richard Chismar, and in his childhood there was a serial killer on the loose, and then it follows him throughout his life as he is trying to make peace with what happened. He is a bit of an armchair detective trying to piece together and perhaps find the identity of this person who is hunting down these young girls. There definitely are content warnings for violence and sexual assault, but it's not in so much detail that it takes away from the story. So I don't want to scare too many people away from this book on that reason. And I will just say say that this book was so compelling, and what works so well with this book is the fact that, like I said, is while it is presented as fiction and the author does not pretend otherwise, but it's written as if it really happened. And if you actually read all of the info notes at the end of the book, you find out that there is a lot of the story that does have threads of reality, and that made it so compelling. And so I loved reading it and not knowing what was true and what was made up, and it was just chilling. So if you love true crime, particularly a modern true crime story, I really am a fan of things like I'll Be Gone in the Dark and True Crime Addict, where you have the author of the story making himself almost a character and really sharing a lot of his personal life, his growing up, his family, and really includes himself in the narrative. Then you will really like this one. This is also a coming of age story, which I did not expect, and it's a coming of age story in the vein of something from Stephen King. I will say that this book is absolutely a love letter to Stephen King. It is clear that the author has huge respects for him. I know they've worked together before, and there are so many references to his books and his writing, and it worked so well into the story. I really think I appreciated this book more because I've read as much Stephen King as I have at this point, and I'm really glad that I have, because again, it just made me realize what he was doing, because it's all done very subtle, but you can tell that he really respects the background of Stephen King and really creating this horror genre or popularizing it as it's come today. And I just really like this book from so many different angles. I flew through it. It's incredibly fast. I do recommend the audio because, again, I tend to listen to nonfiction on audio, so that really enhanced the story, made me feel like I was hearing the story as it was happening from the author's voice. And oh my goodness, there's a reason everyone is giving this book gushing reviews online, and I am joining on the campaign. I really do think you should check out this book if you like true crime, if you like coming of age stories, if you're a fan of Stephen King. For all of those reasons, or any of those reasons, you will really enjoy this one. I, again, think that it's totally living up to the hype. I had so much fun reading it. Highly recommend. And I think that it is a perfect book to read this spooky season if you're looking for something to add to your TBR still. And I also want to mention that I read Censor by Junji Ito, his newest horror release, and you know that I love his manga. This story is a little bit hard to summarize. It is involving a community where there is sacrifice and there is creepy things happening. I'll be honest that I loved the artwork in this one. There were some absolutely stunning, creepy, terrifying scenes. But as for the story itself, I thought it was really weak. I thought that the narrative was really jarring and confusing and just skipped around. And certainly there were good moments to it, but I'll be honest that it really let me down. I did not like this one as much as I hoped I would. And I know he has one more release that's being translated coming out in December, and I'm really hoping that that one will work better for me. So I'll kind of give a cautious review, say I read my copy through the library, and if you can, I would recommend doing that. Of course, if you love his artwork, that part is just as strong as always, and you won't be disappointed in that area. Moving right along. Now from here, I want to mention a few other horror books you might want to put on your TBR. The first one I want to talk about is the novella Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Clare. I technically talked about this book before, but that was way back when I did my fall preview, and so I wanted to mention this book again now that I believe it is available. And so, as I mentioned, it is a novella, so it's very short. It follows a group of wedding partiers who rent out this hall and this old Japanese manor in order to party in preparation for the wedding events. Little do they know that there was a bride that was killed here and their ghost is possibly haunting the place. This is a haunted house story, this is a ghost story, and it's also what I would describe as a survival story, or at least follows the narrative tropes, because you have this group of friends with a complicated relationship. Some of them have dated before, some of them like each other, some of them don't, and when things start to go bad, as you know that they're going to do, you get to see this friend group completely fall apart. You get to see what happens, and I really loved it. I love the Japanese cultural elements of it, and I will say that it's not exactly new in terms of it's not the kind of story I've never seen before. It very much plays into all the horror tropes, but it does so very well, and I enjoyed what it did. I had a lot of fun reading this one, and I think if you just want a fun, spooky story, this one is great for this time of year. I'm really excited that it's out and more people are able to read it now. And of course the cover is gorgeous, which always helps. And speaking of spooky stories, I also want to give another mention to Slewfoot by Brom, which yes, I did talk about in my fall preview, but I want to revisit again now that it's available. And since then I've received the beautiful hardback edition from Tor Nightfire. And so I really want to showcase it here because I do think that the physical book is definitely part of the experience. So this book is set in the Puritan era following a young woman who lives in a colony. Her husband has passed away right at the beginning of the story, and so the leaders of the community are pressuring her to remarry, but she does not want to, which is really inappropriate for a young woman, and so she is seen as quite the outcast and, well, possibly is suggested to be a witch. And through that she ends up befriending this creature known as the Slewfoot, who is arguably also an outcast, and the story goes from there. I will say that I really appreciated the story. The writing was fantastic. It is dark and creepy, and it's very much what you would expect from that synopsis. What I didn't love about the story was only my personal taste, and that's the fact that I don't tend to like historical fiction in general. Particularly Puritan era is just not my cup of tea. I'll be really frank about that. And so this was just not the style of story, the time period that I'm interested in reading about. So I'm actually going to say that I'm impressed how much I liked it despite those elements. So this was not a 5-star read for me, but if you like those kind of things, this definitely could be. And I just want to show it here. Of course, you get the beautiful cover, but this is being published in hardcover, and the book itself is definitely worth checking out. If you're not familiar with Brom, he does his own illustrations in his books, and the artwork is just beautiful. So I was very excited to actually get to see, some of the artwork there. I don't want to give away too much, but if you're familiar with Brom, this is dark and creepy and fits with the atmosphere of the story so well. So I'll let you experience the rest of the pictures for yourself. But again, if you're looking for a last-minute addition to your reading plans, I really think that this is a great book to pick up if you like that gothic, older style of horror. So that is it. We've made it to the end of the video here, and I would love to hear your opinions down below of the books I talked about. Which ones are you planning on checking out either in the short term or adding to your never-ending TBR if it's anything like mine? I would also love to hear once again, what are you reading in the coming weeks? What are your spooky plans in terms of books? And if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. I read horror not just around Halloween, but all year round, so I definitely can give you more recommendations. And I do read not just horror, but also thrillers, science fiction, fantasy, so if that sounds good, hopefully you'll enjoy that as well. If you want to support my channel, you can also give me a thumbs up, share this video around online, and if you hit that little notification bell, you'll never miss a video from me. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.